So I asked a Big 12 source, an administrator, how much have you, as a conference, they're in Vegas, the College Football Hall of Fame banquet, Derek Johnson from UT, Waco High, we'll have him on, Kansas City Chiefs, we'll have him on in about an hour. So I asked, have you discussed anything about the ACC implosion? Have you discussed anything about the scenarios? Is this on the table like right now? Is this any kind of imminent, or is this just, again, what's being reported on social media? Any report the Big 12 discussed, and this, by the way, there was a report that they actually were briefed about this, that the Big 12 was briefed about this, AD's presidents, last night. Any report the Big 12 ACC discussed ACC implosion and scenarios did not happen. That is false. I'm also not aware of any meeting between the ACC Commissioner Jim Phillips and Big 12 Commissioner Brett Yormark on that topic. Now, having said that, that doesn't mean there haven't been some conversations perhaps about, that might just be normal, like we would discuss something in football. But as far as anything like a briefing or a meeting last night or anything at all, being told that has not occurred, that doesn't mean it won't. It doesn't mean it might not. It doesn't mean it will. I'm just trying to cover the scenarios. But it has not been something that they were briefed on as far as because of what happened over the weekend with the college football playoff standings at FSU.
Well, look, FSU and Clemson are going to try to leave the ACC at some point. I don't think that's going to be tomorrow. And I don't think it's going to be – my guess is it's not going to be on the timetable that the realignment heads want it. The people who crave it. I don't know. I mean, if you've got to have teams of people going over a legal document like it's the freaking Magna Carta, to me, I think they would have found a way yet. It's probably now about raising money to get out, which, given today's news, here's the other thing. Given today's news of what the NCAA is proposing,
yes,
I'm not even sure that conferences will stay exactly as they are. Like,
even the big boys.
Even the big boys. Like, they're like, and we'll get to that topic in a second where we can give it its full, but so I would say that today's conference realignment news that's not news yet should be at least paused until we figure out what the proposal from the NCAA that's going to be talked about a lot actually means, which, to simplify it before we even get into it, if you have not heard the details of it yet, it is drawing a very clear line in the sand of have and have-nots.
Oh, no, that line has been,
but no,
sometimes it's been covered up with it when the tide comes in, but yeah.
But this is the NCAA actually saying it.
Yes.
Out loud.
Yes, absolutely.
Out loud.
The president of the
NCAA saying out loud, look, we understand that there are two tiers. There's more than two, but at least two tiers of finances involved here when it comes to college athletics. There are schools that have these resources and are pumping them in, and schools that don't. And there's NIL out there and athlete compensation, like all these different things that the modern NCAA needs to get their arms around. And I do think that this is not surprising this has come out, because I think if they really want Congress involved, Congress has told them, here's what you have to do for us to set guidelines for you, in that we can set something that is going to be overarching federal regulation so that you don't have 50 different state laws that are ever changing when somebody thinks up a new way to like circumvent the system. But you have to set up something first. And this is the first pass attempt at coming up with something that can be regulated. So let's get into that,
because
get
to what that is.
That to me is the biggest story in college athletics today. And I'm not surprised also that it's dropped the day after the College Football Committee created a lot of negative news.
Everybody's in Vegas.
Yeah, right? Everybody's in Vegas. But also put this out there and like try to get the shameful thing that happened in Grapevine out of the news cycle.
Yeah, it's one of those you want to wash your mouth out with soap or whatever. Charlie Baker proposing the creation of a new subdivision within Division I that would allow the highest resource schools the ability to compensate athletes directly through a trust fund and direct NIL payments. here are a couple of things that are being, and again, there's a lot of, because Title IX is heavily involved with the amount of money given to the male athletes must be equaled by what you give to women. And Ross Dellinger, Nicole Auerbach, and others are looking into this and trying to figure out what they mean. The formulation, I won't read all of it because it's very lengthy, but it's like, okay, this is like somebody just said, remember the last time, I think it was McMuffin. By the way, the Egg McMuffin's pretty good, by the way, if you've ever had one of those. Remember what happened the last time we had some smoke about conference implosion? 90% of what was thrown up against social media fell to the ground. But all it takes is 5 or 10% to be legitimate, and eventually enough of it was to create chaos and a frenzy. The formation of a new subdivision made up of institutions with the highest resources that can directly compensate athletes through an enhanced educational trust fund requires the schools that opt into it an investment of at least $30,000 per year per athlete for at least half of the school's eligible athletes. Schools who would have to adhere to Title IX, providing equal monetary opportunities to both female and male athletes. The new subdivisions create their own set of rules, separate from the rest of Division I. Those rules would allow them the ability to address policies such as scholarship limits, roster size, as well as transfers and NIL. Finally, any Division I school would be able to enter into an NIL deal with its own athletes directly, which is not currently permissible, and also able to distribute to any athlete funding related to educational benefits without any caps on such compensation. A lot of word salad, but a lot of that we've thought about. Is that ever going to happen? At least it's just a proposal to get feedback from the membership of the NCAA.
I have 1,000 questions on this, on how it would work. So, okay, Jason Belzer was on yesterday, and he said that athlete compensation, revenue sharing was coming in 2025. And he thought that was. And it was pretty interesting to me because even I was like, man, that's pretty optimistic that, just over a year from now they can get that done. But here you see it. It's on the, like, this is a proposal on the way for revenue sharing. But, okay, when you put Title IX, and he said that the problem with it, like I asked him about Title IX, he said, well, here's the deal. It doesn't apply to Title IX because, it is outside of that. Title IX requires you to put these things. Well, this would keep it within the bubble of Title IX, but that raises a different problem, Smokey. So say you have a $10 million all-in budget for your name, image, and likeness.
Okay.
Right? So more than likely, at a normal school, 60% of that's going to football, correct?
I would say more than that. But
let's
men's
say
basketball is going to get a nice chunk, too.
So, the only reason I say that it's 60% is that there's more there's more athletes, and then it might be 70, and you don't need as many. But so 70%, let's say 70%, that leaves 20% for the rest of the school. Well, of that 20%, 15% is going to go to men's basketball, and 5% is going to go anywhere else. So to provide equal monetary opportunities so that you don't have to rob Peter to pay Paul, or in this case, rob Peter to pay Mary,
Is that a band?
Yeah, but you would have to then raise the money that you're putting into football because you're not going to take any money away from football players. That's who's driving this whole ship anyway. So you're going to have to put more money into paying football. And so then how many schools are really willing to do this?
How many of the 60,
have the wherewithal?
what are there, 65?
68.
68, Notre Dame, Independent, among a couple of others. How many, in your opinion, on the chat room, of the 68 who are considered to be
in the Power Four now?
In the Power Four, because the Pac-12 is gone, unfortunately, after the summer. How many of those 68 schools do you think, how many of them do you think will be able to afford this? Secondly, how many group of 5 schools might say, damn, we might have endowments or things that help us gain some extra money. We may want to be a part of that, too.
How many other SMUs are out there?
Yeah,
Like, how many other SMUs are out there that we don't know about? I don't think there's many because they might have already made the, like, in the 4 months since SMU made their deal, they've been calling conference and listen, we won't take any money. We've got lots, too. I don't know. This is really interesting in how it will be, and it is the NCAA has to start trying to make responses or make plans to deal with the future of college athletics.
Somebody shadow bearded 30-40. Not a lot of schools can. Cougar Tracks 20. Half for Terry Frazier. About 60 from Kyle Visser. Probably somewhere between, I don't know. He's doing a prediction on the Texas game. By the way, Softy from KJR is going to join us tomorrow. Chip Brown as well on that game. Retired stockbroker. Paul, go back. 25 cash, 25 other teams using credit cards.
Yeah.
All right, there you go.
Yeah.
Like, I have a debit card. I do not have a credit card. I can't trust myself because I've done stupid things before with a credit card. I have a debit card. So you know what that means? I can't buy something if it's not in my bank account. And it's been wonderful. It really is very, refreshing. Some people can do a credit card and still buy things with cash because they can pay the credit card bill when it comes in. So, now there's a statement from the NABC, which is the National Association of Basketball Coaches. The NABC commends the NCAA Charlie Baker on proposing forward-thinking changes to the future structure of Division I. Of particular significance, the proposed model for new Division I subdivision would offer greater flexibility for institutions to further invest in specific sports and athletes at their discretion, an outcome that has long been championed by the NABC and must remain an NCAA priority. There you go with that.
Well, that's good news. So that then they'll pick, but they still have to make sure that
But it doesn't include football. The NCAA doesn't run football.
No, it doesn't.
This is not about football, although it is because of the NIL. This is about everything other than football. Football's underneath the umbrella of the College Football Playoff Committee.
Yeah.
Which is, maybe it won't be after a couple more days.
Yeah, but it's football still underneeth the schools.
John Peterson, 46 schools max. So how about today? First of all, a couple of sources that gave me some quotes about any talk about the ACC, the implosion or whatever, and that's always going to be out there because Paul's pissed, and if he's pissed, Florida State's pissed, and if Florida State pissed, that means the ACC is pissed too.
Yeah.
All right.
They're there's a lot of questions that come with this, and I do think some of it is refreshing in that the NCAA is just kind of admitting, finally, they don't really admit who they are.
It's like tapping out.
It is tapping. Okay, look, we can't, it was, if honestly, if you would put the NCAA in charge of you can only do the transportation that the NCAA picks, half the teams would be in 7 Model Ts, cranking the car in the front and going to games because they're well, the first teams went in Model Ts. What's changed? We can't change the model, and that they're so this is admitting where you are.
Yep,
admitting where you are. And that's rare. I just don't know how it all really works and plays out. And because one of the things we talked about with realignment was, when does it get to the point where all the money involved, when it's hey, listen, this just happened to Oregon State and Washington State. It just happened to them. But for the schools, even in the power conferences, where they say, listen, guys, we appreciate you always being our homecoming game, but that's not how the thing works anymore.
All right, here's a quote, or here's a tweet from Ross Dellinger on the Title IX part of it. This is from Ross Dellinger on what, the question about, what about Title IX? 50% of all cash deposited into the trust fund would need to go towards women to comply with Title IX. Does that mean the total amount spent on men has to be the same as spent on women? It's unclear, but the numbers who are receiving compensation need to be equal. So and Nicole Arbach had something very, very similar to this. I asked her to be on the show, Ross as well. They're both obviously today swarmed. Now, we'll have Bruce Feldman today on the transfer portal on this NCAA subdivision. And also, they did an article back on December the 1st about the quarterbacks. Today, Chandler Rogers, the quarterback at North Texas, has entered the transfer portal. He will have interest. More entered last night. There are reports about Dylan Gabriel in Oregon or Riley Leonard in Notre Dame. So we'll get into all that. There's a lot to get into with Bruce Feldman. Also, Joseph Duarte, Houston Chronicle, on the first couple of days of Willie Fritz with the Houston Cougars program.
But here's my question, and I'll just use Baylor as an example. So you can opt into this, and retired soccer broker kind of nailed it, like 25 schools on cash and 25 on credit. Well, Baylor's a small school, so there's a lot of money here, but to do something like this, some of it would, like, how do your alums make you do it? Like,
maybe some alums say I'm out. Some alums are going to have the Eagles, and that doesn't mean you can't. Then that's not a bad thing.
Like, as far as opting in, saying that you're going to put the resources towards thing.
How much did that stadium cost in a mile from here? $300 million or whatever it was. The pavilion, the new football operation, they're in. They may not have everything. They got to maybe go scratch and claw, like Mac Brown has said before, between facilities and NIL. With what GXG is doing now. With the NIL ramping it up, and it's obvious that they have. Now can they do that and use it for the transfer portal? They'll try, and they hope that it helps. But they're in. They may not, may think they're a small private school. You think USC is in?
Yeah.
Well, you think TCU's in?
I would think so. But, again, I don't know, the inner workings of the administration, it depends on how big this is.
It's not even what you have going on right now. It's what you have spent in the last 5 to 10 years to get yourself in this position. I think more people than we think would say, no, we're in, and then maybe they then have to declare athletic bankruptcy at some point down the road.
Yeah, they have to figure out, that's my question is, how many people do this because they've already invested this much, and now here we get this game-changing thing, and you're like, okay, well, we have to go. We have to do it because we've already tried to be at this level. So I would assume that the schools in the power conferences are all going to try to do this, but I would not be surprised to see some go, we just can't.
No, there's some that might tap out.
We just can't.
There might be some that tap out. All right, so there we are. I'm trying to go down.